Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on WSGW. Now, here is your host, Kareen Bowen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America. Today, we have a great show planned for you today. I am excited about this conversation. A couple of weeks ago, I was just kind of like, what is going on in the world? On this show, we talk about issues of race. We put them in context of being able to have conversations, and it requires us to be very courageous in having these conversations because oftentimes they are things, not that they are wedge issues, but they're issues that really are that we consider passionate as people. And so today, our conversation is no different than other conversations that we've had in the past. And I just want to let everyone out there know that I hope that you guys take a moment and just listen in to what this conversation is about. We're going to be talking about how our community and how Latin communities, Hispanic communities, whichever you call yourself or you embrace, how those communities are dealing with now ICE being in Saginaw County. When I think of ICE, I've often, ICE has been around, I think, since 2003 or so, right after, in response to the World Trade Center bombing to make our nation safer, which I certainly believe in safe borders. I think that any common sense American would believe and would desire to be safe in our nation. And so it was started out as that, and it was about bringing in two different bodies that operated. One of those was customs, making sure that our custom exchanges were safe, and then also the other one was Homeland Security, and we kind of brought those two together. That we have now this organization referred to as ICE, and it is responsible for making sure we have secure borders, customs, and all of the things dealing with Homeland Security in those spaces. And so today we have with us Angel Gomez. He is sitting in. He is the chair for the Latino Caucus in Saginaw County with the Democratic Party. I want to say welcome to United Shades of Gray, Angel.
Thank you for having me.
And I want you to pronounce your name because oftentimes we dilute names and we make them comfortable or easier for us to say. And I want to give respect to your heritage and those who gave you this name. Would you please pronounce your name the way that it is intended to be pronounced?
Yes. My name is Angel Gomez, and I go by Angel. They are both spelled the same, and they transfer over to the same.
So for all of you folks out there, all of the gringos who can't say okay, we're going to say, including myself, right? We're going to say for all purposes, Angel, thank you for allowing us to have that conversation. Angel, thank you for being here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the dynamics of what's happening in Saginaw County. Just tell me a little bit about who you are, and let's start there. Who are you, Angel?
So I am a clinical social worker. I have also started the Latino Caucus to get more Latinos involved in the political atmosphere because there are a lot of Latinos that do not want to be in the political aspect right now.
Okay. And you say they don't want to be in the political aspect, but are you from Saginaw County?
I am.
Okay, born and raised here.
Yes, sir.
What school did you go to?
I went to Chesneen Schools.
All right. It's important for us to understand that the people that are doing this work are people that are a part of this community. When we look at what's going on in the world, it's so much easier to have sentiments or feelings about people when they are those people. Mm-hmm. But I needed to make sure that we, people understand that you are here in this community, born and raised in the community. So you're one of us.
Yes.
In the community. We one of each other, right? So you were here. What made you get involved with this kind of work, with political activism? What made you want to be an advocate?
So ever since I was little, I've been involved in the political atmosphere. My grandfather would take me door knocking because he was in the union.
Okay.
We would do parades and all that. And then as I grew up and I saw not a lot of Latinos in these political realms,
right,
in these spaces, being able to give their point of view. So I discussed that of like, how do I get them in these spaces? And the Latino Caucus was born.
Okay, so the Latino Caucus, how long or how How old is this baby of yours?
It's only about a year old now.
Okay.
And it's been doing quite a bit of educating different elected officials that are coming in, that are running for office, some of the elected officials that have already been in office, sharing their point of views, letting us have a conversation with them that most people have all the time.
When you say educating, and that kind of like my spidey senses kind of beep beep. When you say educating, what exactly are you educating the community, these officials on?
So it's educating more of the community that we can have communication and conversations with our elected officials. There is a lot of we know who our elected official is, but we don't talk to them. We don't engage with them.
Right. So do you find as you're doing this work, and you've been in this space for quite a while, that was one of the reasons you saw that there was not a voice or an advocate for Latino people in this particular space?
Correct.
In politics particularly, right?
Yes.
What do you think the reason is that you don't find people of the Latino, Hispanic community really engaging the space in politics?
A lot of it has to do with our divide in our own community. There are Republicans, there are Democrats, and then there's that middle ground where we can come together and want our government to work for us as well as be able to support us. So how do we go about doing that? And before I even started, there was a lot of our elders who are like, yeah, we know this person, but we don't talk to him. We don't put anything on the table.
So what do you believe are the biggest misconceptions that the public has when we talk about undocumented workers? And I want to be respectful because, once again, in order for us to diminish someone, we have to, first of all, take away their humanity.
Yes.
And I don't like the term illegal immigrants. I like undocumented workers or undocumented individuals, right?
Yes.
What do you think is the biggest misconception surrounding them?
I would say that just because you're brown doesn't mean that you're undocumented. And just because you're working manual labor doesn't mean that you're undocumented either. Another thing is that we've had the border jump us a couple of times when the Louisiana Purchase started, Texas becoming a state, when it originally wanted to be its own country, and the workforce that we use here in the United States is the misconception. A lot of companies hire this labor because they want cheap, they want easy, they want fast. They don't necessarily want skilled. So when an undocumented person gets this work, it is also viewed as this person's doing the crime, not necessarily the company that's doing it.
I think that's super duper important to make that distinction. And I'm going to bring that up again because in the particular situation we're looking at Saginaw County, I asked you this before. And so we're going to get to that in just a minute. But when you talk about this, you said we've jumped the borders. Explain. I know what you're talking about, but for someone who's out there who really doesn't understand what you mean by that, let's be clear about what you mean.
You mean the border jumped us?
The border jumped. There you go.
So
we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. No, go ahead.
Yep. So what happened was when the United States purchased the Louisiana Purchase, the border went from being right there, that short span, to incorporating Texas and Arizona and Mississippi and Oklahoma and all of that. Before that used to be Mexico. So Mexico used to be in charge of that land.
You know, what's interesting is most Americans, we forget or we don't really understand history. And even with that particular, how that land grab took place, and you talk about we got jumped by the border, and using the Mexican population that was there in order to get rid of folks who were there and then to kick them out of that same land that they fought to have.
Yep.
It is a story that is very central to how America has operated. And I don't say that. Now, many people are like, if you don't like the country, get out of it. Well, you know, I can say the same thing about many other people. But what I will say, as we look at where we are today, what do you think? And we're coming into a political season. It is tomorrow is a primary here for Michigan. We're going to decide who's going to be our governor, who's going to be senators that are going to be representing us, both at a state level in terms of management of our entire state, but then also on a national level. Who's going to be there to make these votes? Do we continue to fund ICE, or do we put these dollars somewhere else? How does that operate? When we look at these things, what do you think are the key issues that Latinos should be looking at as we move forward? If you were to put together a Latino agenda, what would that look like?
It's going to look very similar to what everybody wants. We want to be able to have good jobs and be able to provide for our families. We want our kids to have futures, so we want them to be able to have a good education. We want our communities to be safe. And when I say safe, I mean that we don't have to worry just because I'm brown skinned if I'm going to get detained by ICE or stopped by ICE because of my skin.
You know, I think that's interesting because of this current administration, it has done a tremendous job with folks who are already concerned or didn't understand or have believed lies and fallacies. It has done a tremendous job of making undocumented workers synonymous with dangerous, synonymous with crime. You say crime, you say undocumented worker. How has that impacted many other Latinos and Hispanics from really joining this coalition and being involved?
It's also they don't want to be seen as criminals. Where a lot of us are not criminals. We are here because we want our safe communities. We want to be able to raise our family safely just like everybody else. And so there's that viewpoint of that potentially if you're joining with the undocumented population that you're supporting criminals. If they committed a crime, 100% get them out. But there are families here who have been here 20, 30, 40 years that have not been able to get that road to pathway for citizenship on board. I know that I talked to a lawyer one time and they charged $5,000 just for a background check.
Wow.
And who has that kind of money to drop down?
Wow. So when you look at this, it is a real challenge. There are some challenges, and I think that both Democrat and Republican, independents alike would say, hey, we have some serious issues as it relates to immigration. That has been the Achilles heel for America. It's not a Democratic Party issue. It's not an independent party issue. Is not a Republican issue. It is an issue that we have as America. How do we, a nation of immigrants, how do we safely and continue to allow other immigrants to come in and to realize the American dream while also keeping our nation safe? And I think that is a real issue. When you look at that being central to what many people think, and we talked about some of those misconceptions, what do you think are some of the misconceptions that Americans have? And what are the real benefits that undocumented workers are really providing that most Americans have no clue? So
there's undocumented, they pay their taxes. They pay their state tax. When you go purchase a TV, they pay that 6% sales tax. They pay for gas. They rent housing. There's money that's flowing into our community because they're working. Also, that we have families that come here they have their kids here and they're able to get an education and help boost the value of the United States by having those people that are educated. Some of those misconceptions that there is that they should just wait in line, that they're cutting in line. And the thing is the line is so long that if you were to apply, for example, in Mexico, it's going to take you 20 to 30 years to come over here. So if somebody already has a family member here, what do? Before Reagan was president, we had this revolving door where people would come in, they would work, and then they would leave. When Ronald Reagan became president, he stopped that door. So at that point, I already broke the law because he stopped the door. What do? Do I just stay here and have a family, or do I go back and potentially not have money to pay bills?
What do you say to the individual? And I know there's a lot of people out there that have this sentiment. You broke the law. Get out, you broke the law. What do you say to folks who feel that way? I don't care how many family members you have here. I don't care how many kids you had here. You broke the law. You should go back. And your kids should go back because you broke the law before the kids were born. What do you say to people that feel that way?
I say that, have you ever jaywalked? Because that's what it's equivalent to. Coming into this country illegal is equivalent to jaywalking. It is not a felony to come into this country. So it is a civil matter. If you were to jaywalk, do you want them to pack up your family and put you in jail for jaywalking?
And I get that, and I'm gonna press you there just a little bit because some people say, okay, jaywalking, but you're jaywalking across an international border, and with that, jaywalking, and some are going to say with the expectation that you're going to become a burden to this new society and get the benefits of a country that you got illegally. Like you somehow you're stealing these benefits. You're going to come in and we're going to have to take care of you and give you health care, which we don't give all Americans who are American citizens health care. That's a whole nother conversation. But what do you say to those individuals that it's not just jaywalking? You're jaywalking across the international border, and you're coming here to be a weight to the system.
So me being a clinical therapist, I have been involved in the system since I got my degree. And the thing is, when you apply for these programs, it requires you to have a social security number. If you've come in here undocumented, you do not have a social security number. And part of those laws say if for you to come over here and try to get visas and things like that, you have to show that you're not going to be a burden.
Okay, so you're saying that I want you to finish because you're not going to be a burden, but what does that mean to you?
That means that you cannot sign up for social welfare programs.
Okay, so you're being very clear, saying that the issue is being conflated because they are not a drain on the system, because if you don't have that social security number, you cannot get those benefits, because that is the narrative that we're hearing, right. That these undocumented workers are coming over, they're taking American jobs, and they're a burden to the system because they're getting all of these social welfare benefits that these programs that exist, that when we look at these and we talk about numbers as well as percentage-wise, neither blacks, undocumented workers, or Latino Americans are the biggest recipients of these social welfare programs. They're white people. And no matter how many times we tell that, we coin and we put the face of social or of welfare, and we either make it black or we make it undocumented workers, because that is the narrative. How often in this work that you're doing do you find yourself fighting off narratives that are so far-fetched that you ask yourself, who actually believes this stuff and where did it come from?
Well, it's used to put us against each other, because if we're fighting each other and we say, oh, this isn't going to happen to us, we can't come together and go for the people that are really causing harm to us. And those people that are causing harm to us are these billionaires and these trillionaires that are willing to not provide us with food, that don't want us to thrive. They don't want us to be happy.
When you it's crazy. You said trillionaires, and you said trillionaires again. I'm going to say it for a third time, trillionaires. We're not talking about people who are just millionaires. Millionaires is like poor these days, right?
Yep.
To certain parts of the society. We're talking billionaires. We're talking trillionaires. We now effectively have an administration that is producing trillionaires.
Yes.
This current administration, the president, number 45 and 47, in this time in office has ingratiated himself to $1.47 billion. When we talk about the burden or the weight that someone has on a system, we have found that regular old folk here in Saginaw County, blue-collar people, those who are on the lower totem pole, Saginaw is actually below the national poverty line when it comes to the standards. When we look at places like Kentucky, we look at places like rural Texas, who have a very similar struggle to what I would consider most of the undocumented workers are facing. They vote against what is best for them because of identity politics. Let's talk about those identity politics and how we finding people listening to narratives and voting against their own best interests because of those people.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes into that, and so there's skits that I've seen all over social media that, you know, they have the trillionaire that has all these cookies, they have an undocumented person that has a cookie, and then they have the common American worker that has a cookie. And the trillionaire is telling them that the reason why they don't have more cookies is because of the undocumented person who has one cookie. But it really boils down to that these billionaires and trillionaires don't feel like our labor is that important, that their work that they do is more valuable than us working in the field, us working in the shop, us working at any point of that.
So the essence of this is the African American guy has a cookie. The undocumented worker has a cookie. The white American has a cookie, and the billionaires and trillionaires they got storehouses of cookie.
Yes.
And they're telling the person, the white guy with one cookie, the reason you don't have more cookies is because you gave the black man has to have a cookie.
Yep.
We got to have affirmative action and process. We've got to have DEI so the black man can have a cookie.
Yep.
Because if it wasn't for DEI, the black man wouldn't have a cookie. And if it wasn't for DEI and these social welfare programs, Mexicans and brown folks certainly wouldn't have a cookie. And now they want to give cookies to these undocumented people. Where do you think they're going to take the cookies from? They're going to take the white man's cookie.
Yep.
This is what you're saying.
Yep. That's
but the
the
reality of it is that these billionaires and trillionaires, and this is where, I have co-partners that are normally here, Mark Bassett, who is an amazing co-host. They're not with us recording today because we're recording on a different day, but he often makes the statement that, Kareem, we've moved from this being solely on race to one being of class.
Yes.
And so we have the aristocrats, the elites, the rich who are saying to the poor white man, listen, you're one of us. Look at your skin, look at my skin, making it about race when in essence they've got a storehouse of cookies that all they got to do is let the cookies go and we can all have cookies,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
All right, so I don't know if have you ever heard of Bacon's Revolt?
Yes.
All right, so when I listen to this story, and for those of you who are out there, it reminds me about Bacon's Revolt, how race is not a real thing, but it is a social construct. There were a lot of other things that were tried to divide, to keep the rich people rich and to keep the poor people poor. And they tried all of these different things. And the one that stuck was, hey, if we pit them based upon their color, then they will fight against one another. I think it's an important issue and a discussion to have. We're going to be back with more conversations because I want to bring this conversation back to Saginaw County. Stick, stay, don't go away. We'll be back with more United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Gray on WSGW.
This is Kareem. We're back with more United Shades of Gray, conversations of race in America. And if you've been tuning into this conversation, I think that this has been a very good conversation, one that we have not had for a very long time. I woke up a couple of weeks ago and there were people that were in my front yard and they were digging holes. I'm like, oh my God, this is the second time. Because there was a fiber optic company that came through and they were digging holes. And I said my grass was just growing back. And here they are again digging up my hole. Now, one thing is that I'm a curious person in my community. So I talk to neighbors. I talk to those around. Spanish language and culture was my minor at Michigan State. 4 years of Spanish language at Carleton High School. So it is something whenever I get an opportunity to use Spanish, I try. So I went over to these workers and I just having conversations and talking with them, which they did speak Spanish. They spoke English as well, but here I am trying to learn and to practice my Spanish language. And so I forced that conversation upon them. And just ask some basic things, right? People who are coming in, no different than the Spectrum guy or the plumbing guy that comes to your home. You have some small talk conversations with them. And that's what I was doing. And when I left, having conversations with other folks in the community, I said, wow, these individuals are Spanish speaking. They're brown in skin color. I said, this is probably going to be a problem. I'm waiting for ICE to come in. And in black circles, we have these conversations because we've done stop and frisk. We've done policing. We've done all of those things. Profiling, racial profiling. So we understand how communities work. Even though y'all think, oh, no, it's just the laws, it's principles, it's policies. We have a different perspective because we've been on the other end of this. When you now, and I'm speaking with Angel Gomez, who is the chair of the Latino Caucus of the Democratic Party here in Saginaw County, and we've been having this conversation. Angel, were any of those things, when you saw these brown workers out there doing this work, this laborious work, had that ever crossed your mind that this might become an issue?
It did. It really did cross my mind that it was going to become an issue because, like I said before, these are hard workers that were coming in, and the corporations are the ones that feel like this only valued $12 an hour. I've had people tell me that they were getting paid approximately $160 a day. And so all this work in the heat in the cold, in the rain, in the thunderstorms. They were out there working 10-hour days.
105 degrees one day. I said, let me go take these guys some water because they really should have been pulled off their jobs at that point.
Yes.
It was horrific temperatures. They're out there working, doing work that we wouldn't do.
Yes.
And so you said that you thought that this might be problematic. What were their other reasons? You talked about the perils, but why did you think it might be problematic?
Because no one knew if they were undocumented or what. No one knew if they were from Saginaw. No one knew who these people were, and I thought, yep, this was gonna have it escalated to where ICE were to come in and start racial profiling Hispanics and Latinos.
So, kind of what you're saying is people's fears and assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
They're brown people. They're working. They're doing this job. I spoke to them or I heard them speaking. They were speaking Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably illegal immigrants.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
All right. Talk to me about the problem with that philosophy and also how the Supreme Court has kind of made this fodder, this kind of conversation, a real place that has grit or the ability to really impede or impact us as citizens.
So the Supreme Court has decided that ICE can profile because of skin tone, because of the work that they do, because they speak Spanish, because they even have an accent when they speak English. So that was all approved. And so that leads into so this person doesn't belong here because they have an accent or they're brown. I'm told that I have a very Midwest accent, even when I speak Spanish. So people, when I go down to Texas, know that I'm not from Texas.
You speaking at Michigan Spanglish.
Yep, that Michigan Spanglish. And so that brings out that thought. And when we hear the rhetoric, they're criminals, they're criminals, they're criminals. People are fearful when they see a brown person speaking Spanish that they're going to be a criminal. And majority of the time, it's the American citizens we have to be concerned about committing violent crimes.
Okay, what do you think the impact has been on our president with the rhetoric and the conversation and the painting undocumented individuals as criminals, as the worst that that Mexico has to offer? Criminals, crime-ridden, rapists. I mean, these are all things I'm not making up. But what do you think the impact is on our psyche, on those who really just don't understand here in this United States?
It's scary, especially when you are fully a law-abiding citizen. You have people that come in, they look at you differently. I'm a bigger Hispanic man that can pass as white, but there's still people that look at me as if I'm out there doing the crimes. So it's fearful, and when you have grandparents who are afraid to go to church or afraid to go to the grocery store because they're viewed as that criminal just because of the shade of their skin or just because they speak Spanish better than English. And so they don't want to go out there and they don't want to go out and buy groceries, go to church. So it starts that cycle of fear of not just the people that are fearful that these people are going to come in and commit a crime, but it's fearful of, like, I'm going to be targeted.
In essence, what the Supreme Court did was allow racial profiling in order to determine who were American citizens. Mm-hmm. And so they gave ICE a badge and said, hey, go out there, stop illegal immigration, and if you got to use their skin color, if they speak a different language, they're probably a criminal, right, or they're probably an alien. So when you look at that, we had a situation that took place here in Saginaw County. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I woke up and was told, hey, we had 8 individuals that were missing, that were workers that were picked up, trucks still on the side of the road, tools still on the side of the road. And I made a joke with somebody else. Was there a rapture and I missed it? Because I need to know. Because I didn't feel that there was an outcry from our community residents in the manner that it should have been. And so how much of this racial profiling, these new laws that the Supreme Court are standing in step and toe with, how much do you think that played a role in what we saw happen here in Saginaw County?
So it did definitely play a role with it. There were 9 men that were picked up. Nobody knows 8 of them. No one knows their names. No one knows their status. And ICE has been picking up people who are doing the right way. They are going to court. They are filing the paperwork like they should. They are taking their children to school. They're going to work. They're doing the right stuff, and ICE is picking them up. They're not.
They're picking them up, going to immigration,
Yep.
or actually getting their
or
visas
walking out,
and
or
green cards.
walking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
They're walking out from that interview and they get picked up. So that's where it's coming from, is that there are people that are fearful. Like I will admit again, I'm white passing, but had I been working out there, they've also called our paperwork fake. There's a story out there of a young lady who provided their birth certificate, and they still said that she was undocumented here. She had her lawyer go pick up the birth certificate from the courthouse and bring it back, and they still called it fake.
Wow. It's AI.
Yeah.
All right. So you use the phrase white passing. Folks in the black community understand what that means. It's long been an issue. There was a movie about it called Imitation of Life, where there was this young girl who had a black mother, a white father. Her skin was fair enough to pass what we refer to as the paper bag test.
Mm-hmm.
The paper bag test, if you know, they were brown. If you ever went to the grocery store back when we did paper, not plastic, and you put it up to your skin, if you were light enough, lighter than the bag, then you could pass.
Yes.
When you talk about white passing in the Latino community, share with us what you're talking about.
So that's exactly it, the brown paper bag test. I heard stories from my grandfather that was born and raised in Texas that he would go out with his family to dinner, and the restaurant would brown paper bag the kids, and if they were lighter than the brown paper bag, they got to sit with the white people. If they were darker, they had to go sit with the black people. And that's where that brown paper bag comes into play. And I know I'm fair skinned. My biological dad was white. And the Spaniards are white. So that's where all that fair skinnedness comes into play. But if I'm in the sun, I turn a nice olive golden color if I'm in the sun every day. So if that was the case, yeah, I have my white accent, my Michigan accent still, but they're still going to be like, hey, we need to see your papers. And I should not have to carry my birth certificate and my passport with me to show I'm an American citizen.
All right, and I think it's important. How big of an issue is white passing in the Latino community?
It's very big still. During Texas, they had segregated schools. They had the black schools, they had the Mexican American schools, and then they had the white schools. And so when they ended segregation, they combined the Mexican and the black schools so that way they can say, we did it. Later on, the government said, no, you didn't. You put the Mexican schools and the black schools together, which started that whole white process, that white thought of I'm better than these darker people because of X, Y, Z.
And so I think you're giving an important history lesson for those of you who are listening. We use the term ghetto a lot. Oh, that's so ghetto. I remember a song by Sir Mix-a-Lot back in the 90s, Big Butts, or You Got a Big Butt. The name of the song is escaping. It was great. I like big butts, and he talked about this. Sir Mix-a-Lot, and at the beginning, it was like, "Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt, so ghetto." And so we use the phrase "ghetto" to refer a lot of times to things that are black and brown. But the reality of it is, when we talked about ghettos, we talked about folks that were coming in from Ireland and Scotland and other places, that they were being put in a particular area and saying, you can't come over here with the American colonizers.
Right.
And what happened was we found that as black people were buying houses and as brown folks were buying houses, they weren't allowed the pretty houses with the pretty curbs, called red lighting, or even given loans for those places. So they were able to get property, and they ended up in these ghettos, which existed. And as they were in these ghettos, it then became like, who is the bottom of the ghetto?
Yep.
I need y'all to understand this, because there's a reason why ghettos don't just exist because black people or brown people showed up in this nation. Ghettos existed because white folks were here, and the colonizers did not want those coming across from those other countries to be a part of their society. Mm-hmm. And then it became like, how can we get out the ghetto? Well, we have to assimilate to the lifestyle of the colonizers. And so, of course, the lighter you are, the easier you can assimilate. And so when you talk about white passing, part of the problem that blacks have had is that we have fought for freedoms. We have the civil rights movement was such a powerful movement to bring these justices to our community. And after that, after the black folks got them, Indigenous folks, those were also included in these 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. We then see it extended to our immigrants and our brothers and sisters who are crossing the border from the South. We then see women and black women and other and lesbian, LGBTQ plus QI plus communities benefiting from these things. What we also have seen is that as we have seen brown folks get these opportunities and these benefits that really black people have blood, sweat, and tears have fought for and paved the way, white passing becomes an issue. They get in and they forget where they came from. Yep. They forget the benefits of those things. What do you say to the community that you have out there that are essentially saying, we like that, we want the benefits of being a minority, but we want the lifestyle of living as a white American? What do you say to that portion of the community?
So I would just say, like I said, I'm white passing, so I'm part of that community, unfortunately. And so I try not to forget where my roots have been made. Chesneen, I have a lot of friends in Chesneen that I talk to, as well as the Latino culture that I listen to. I listen to music. I eat tacos. I do that stuff. But what we're doing is we're trying to break down those stereotypes, because as we have those stereotypes, it's used to dehumanize us, so that way people are okay with us being treated a certain way.
That's right. Back to these undocumented workers that disappeared. Share with us, what is the situation? What did we learn? How did this begin? And I noticed that you said that 9 people were taken, but 8 of them are unknown. Who they are is unknown. One of them is known. Explain how we got that information.
So, yeah, there has been some great journalists that have been able to FOIA information, and we find that this has started with a car accident that led into ICE being
And
contacted.
we're going to say there's a FOIA. We're not going to say who FOIA'd it, because I do not give publicity to this particular place, but go ahead. So there was a FOIA request.
So that information got leaked out about one person.
Right.
And it was a nonviolent crime. It was a fender bender. It wasn't a big accident. The vehicle...
Did they hit a police officer or
No.
something? Okay, because the story was that they ran into a law enforcement officer.
So they were in a car accident, and the officer came because he was called because of the accident.
Okay.
It was a fender bender, non-violent. The vehicle was towed and impounded and everything like that, but ICE was contacted at that point. And then 2 weeks later, they came to look for that person with the information that was provided, and then they were able to grab another 8 men who we don't know their names.
All right, so what do you say to the individuals like, okay, well, if they were illegal, this is not a problem. What's the problem? The officer did what he was supposed to. They couldn't determine who this guy was, so they went to find out who he is. Case closed. They did what they were supposed to. What do you say to that individual?
So would they have done this? Would they have contacted ICE if this person was a South African? Or would they have taken him down to the city jail to do fingerprinting to figure out who they were? That's where my thought process comes in. The other thought process is we are told that they didn't have insurance and they didn't have the vehicle registered in their name and things like that. Okay, so he broke a crime. At that point, you should be able to hold him and detain him because he broke a crime.
Okay, so but doesn't the statute or the procedure for those things recall for ICE to be called? The call for ICE to be called?
So that is a toss-up depending on the law enforcement that you talk to. Some law enforcement that I've talked to says you go to the county jail, get them fingerprinted. You can see if they have warrants out for their arrest, if they have any criminal activity. The other time, there is some law enforcement that says, yes, that's what we do next, is we contacted ICE. But then I've also had, the law enforcement that goes, a vehicle accident is a nonviolent crime. The car was impounded. So at that point, that's small. That's a small potatoes type of thing.
It's interesting that we're having this conversation because I think that as we look at this and we talk about a drain on resources, we talk about the issues, the impact of these things, we're willing to spend a ton of resources on these situations, but not really a ton of resources on making sure that immigration operates and functions the way that we need it to. Mm-hmm. When we listen to what is going on and we see what's going on, in this particular situation, what's the recourse of individuals who were picked up? I mean, will we ever know who they are? Because what is happening is, if we don't know who they are, then, and the government has kind of set a track record, is that we will deport you and find out later. What's the impact, and are you hopeful that we will find out who these individuals are?
I am hopeful. I did get some tips just recently, so I'm hoping to be able to get their names. But the scary part of that is if I were to go work down in Tennessee and my family's here in Michigan and I get picked up and they deport me without asking any questions of who I am, then what do I do for my family? That could be anywhere from a week to months at end before my family get to hear from me, let alone have a paycheck that's coming, especially if I'm the main breadwinner. If I am paying for everything and my wife's home alone, think of the thoughts that would entail of like, oh my God, this person just disappeared. They're not answering their phone. They're not answering their messages. And it's worrisome because we don't know if these people are documented or not. In past, we've had mass deportations happen as well. And like majority of them were U.S. citizens that were deported.
Wow. If you were able to, I want you to outline, when you think about policy, what changes would you like to see in U.S. immigration policy that would both protect America, its soil, and keep our national security intact, but also address the needs for undocumented families and workers to be able to come in and a pathway to citizenship?
So the first thing I would do is I would stop the mass deportation, because what that does is it puts people in the shadows to be taken advantage of, which then you have companies who are paying them less because they're hiding. The next thing I would do is I would focus on making it affordable and have more access. So just recently, majority of the judges that are in immigration court got fired. So getting more judges, getting more lawyers involved, trying to make the process as easy as possible so that way they can come over here legally. The other way is being able to provide some kind of structure to allow the people that are here 30, 40 years to be able to either go back and apply correctly and make it as fast as possible, because some of them are the only breadwinners in the family.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into it. When ICE, we talked about how ICE was started in 2003. They got rid of actually 3 departments to create ICE. ICE was not a law enforcement agency. It was an agency that was able to go through the immigration process. There was a component of keeping our borders safe. Mm-hmm. Now it doesn't seem like they're keeping our borders safe anymore. Yeah. They look like they're going after the people that are trying to live their life and be happy, not these criminals that are out there killing and raping people.
Yeah, ICE was Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and it was a particular agency that was almost relegated to the borders for that purpose. This current administration has given billions of dollars to, in essence, create a sense of militarization to an organization that was supposed to be protect and serve.
Yes.
And so I think that that's an important issue. When you look at this, you mentioned the communities, and we only got a minute. What is the role of these communities and what responsibility, not communities, corporations, what is the responsibility of these corporations? Because if we don't know who they are, those companies do or should.
Yes, those companies should, and they should come out and be able to say these are the people that were taken. However, we have learned from our history that these corporations don't do that. Coca-Cola had hired a lot of undocumented workers because they didn't want to pay Americans their price. And what happened is they fired them and they called ICE on them. And so that way they were picked up. So they didn't have to pay that bill of labor, because what is a corporation's number one goal? Profits.
Wow. So here you have it. Mr. Gomez is here. How can they contact you if they have questions, concerns? They see someone getting picked up. Who should they call?
So there is the Latino Caucus does have a Facebook with the Democratic Party. There's an email on there as well that you can reach out to me. And there's if you want to report that ICE is in our area, you can shoot an email and we can go from there.
All right. Certainly thank you for coming here to United Shades of Gray, Mr. Gomez. And for those of you who are continually listening, I want you to like, tag, and share this conversation. Let somebody know, hey, we are truly better together. A community of diversity is the community that I want to be in. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next week. Grace and peace.